What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 25 of the Dragoncast. My name is Brian Daniels, and I'm back once again with my podcasting partner in crime, Victor Salazar. Victor, how you doing today, brother?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Still early morning. I'm still trying to get my coffee in, and virtual fist pump to all you guys out there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, man, I'm trying to get my coffee in too, man. I'm using my favorite giraffe cup. I love giraffes. I've got like different giraffe cups. I've got my coffee going as well. But,
just wait till it's 1 p.m. my time. I'll still be on coffee too, man. All day long.
I know.
All day long.
So everybody, you might not forget, but Victor's all the way over in the West Coast. He's in California, so it's still morning for him there.
While it's early, man. I'm still trying to get the spider webs on my eye and everything.
No doubt about it. So we do have another guest with us here this week on the Dragoncast. She is a very well-known radio personality in my hometown of Indianapolis, Indiana, and she is a one of the former co-hosts on the Smiley Morning Show of WZPL, and she was also on the Mix there as well. She had a morning show, and then she transitioned from that to her own not her own podcast, but like she does a podcast with other people called the Tiny Nerdy Girls Podcast. And very own Kari Johll, KJ, how you doing?
Hi,
it's so great to have you on the podcast.
I'm excited. I didn't know we were all going to be drinking coffee. I slammed 2 cups before I got here. I have nothing to offer but a bottle of water that I've been working on it for 2 weeks. So.
I got my water.
You know what? Look, we all got water. I got water.
We all got water.
All right.
We're good.
So we got KJ on the show today because we wanted to talk with you about, we're talking about really the big theme here is how to get into podcasting, because really it's not that difficult. You don't need a ton of equipment. You don't need Victor, you're on your phone with a pair of pretty crappy headphones.
I got my phone, I got my phone propped up against my pillow here on my bed, and I got some headphones I just pulled out of a drawer, make sure they were charged, just whatever you have at home, you're good to go, man.
Yeah. And I want to talk with KJ about your time as a radio personality. You were on the Smiley Morning Show for quite a long time, right?
I was 14 years.
14 years. That's insane, man. I remember listening to you and Dave and the gang. Every morning I wake up and I listen to you guys. It's definitely my favorite morning show, and I'm not just saying that because you're on here. I mean, that's I love it, and I still listened to it when I lived there after you were gone.
I still listen to it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and I gotta know something. You made that jump from being radio to podcasting. How long ago was that, KJ, that you transitioned from that?
Full on into podcasting has been about a year, but I was doing my podcast and radio for about 2.5 years prior before. Oh, wow. Realizing that I really just want to talk about nerdy stuff. So I don't want to do the Hollywood dirt anymore. And I don't want to wake up at 3:45. So
yeah, that's probably the best part right there.
Yes, yes, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, you I'm sure you had met several people in the music industry, being on the radio and things like that. And if you don't mind me asking, hopefully this isn't too personal of a question. What made you decide to be kind of just like, I don't want to do radio anymore? Was it kind of like that, or were you just more like, you said you wanted to talk about nerdy things and you kind of wanted to do your own thing? What was that kind of decision like for you?
It was it was a sort of a natural progression. In that, in the last few years that I was in radio, when I went to podcasting, part of that reason was because our radio company was encouraging us to podcast. Very few DJs were taking advantage of that. But for me, every time that, I sat in the office with my program director and he was like, not everybody's as nerdy as you. Not everybody's as excited about Star Wars as you are. And I wanted to argue with him on that. And then I was like, well, fine. I'll just go do a podcast.
Do it on my own. Yeah, that's nice. That's cool.
So I was fortunate that when I started podcasting, I had all of the amazing equipment that comes with having a radio studio and a platform in radio.com that I just hit send, and my podcast went places and got promoted. And so I was very fortunate in starting. And then last year around this time, the radio stations that I worked for were purchased by another company. We expected a lot of changes were coming. The company is great. I still work with them very much. I'm very tied into them because of my transition to Make-A-Wish, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But
absolutely,
Make-A-Wish is tied into these radio stations very heavily, and things kind of came full circle. So I still work very regularly with my friends in radio. It's just a different, it's just a different lifestyle. And it really was, honestly, Brian, it was when I left, and it was a mutual agreement, right? Like there were cuts that were coming. This felt like a change for me that was necessary. I said to myself, well, this will determine if I really love podcasting, because now I have to do it myself.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like
I have to set up a studio. I had to, get the microphone. I had to figure out how to use Libsyn so that my podcast could go out. Like all those things that I hadn't thought about before. And I was just having fun talking about Marvel movies, Harry Potter. And now it was like, okay, the talking part is really fun, but the rest of it's a lot more work. So we'll see. So now we're about a year later into the Kind of Nerdy Girls. Previously, I had 300 episodes into what was called the Kind of Nerdy News, which was on radio.com, which is now not on radio.com. I was like, man, you could have told me you were going to take those 300 episodes down. I would have.
Where's the heads up, right?
Yeah, no kidding, man.
So we are now 85 episodes into the Kind of Nerdy Girls. Both of my co-hosts who actually stayed at the radio station, I said, let's see if we really love this, if this is our passion, we'll put the work into it and we'll keep doing it, and we'll find the time and we'll make it a priority. And, I didn't know if that would last, but we're 85 episodes in a year later. We have a couple of additional members of our team, and honestly, it's been a little bit freeing to have the flexibility to do the show how we want it, post when we want, interact with other podcasts, because that always felt weird in radio. A lot of people are like, oh, you're a podcaster. I'm a radio personality, and honestly, the shock of, the community, Brian, you were one of the first ones cheering me on. Radio people don't do that. Like we gotta be number one, and we've got to have the best show. And so there's a competition aspect to radio that is not there. It's not there in podcasting. And I was like, look at all this support. This is amazing. So I'm very happy to be here.
It's one of those deals where when you flick on the radio, one of the first things you hear from a lot of radio stations, number one in the Southland, number one on the East Side, number one on whatever. Yeah. And when you hear podcasting, it's like, oh, you're doing this. That's great. I'll check it out. I'll try to share with my friends, So I think the community in the podcasting world is a lot more encouraging, and I absolutely love that because, just like we are with today, say, oh, we got KJ on. Cool. Let's, push her. Let's make sure she's good. Let's, push what she's got. As opposed to, we got to be number one. You got to put her, none of that stuff. None of that stuff at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that, and you're absolutely right. And I never really thought about it like that before, because you definitely don't have that in the podcasting community, like Victor said. It's very, because I know for me, and I know for here on our show, and I'm sure it's the same for your podcast as well, KJ's. We're all about trying to build other people up, promote other people. It's not so much about ourselves, but the thing about it is that the great part about that is if you're promoting somebody else, you're kind of in a way still promoting yourself.
Yes.
And you're making those networks and you're building those bridges with other people, which can lead to other things. And the beautiful part about that, like you said, KJ, is you have complete control of that, whereas going to work at a radio station, which is not a bad thing. That's something I would love to do for a while myself, is that. But at the same time, it's you have like a programming director, and you have a format you have to follow, and you have to do things a certain way. And to a lot of people like myself, you don't like those restrictions, and you kind of feel like you don't really get to say or get that emotion out of what you're trying to say and how you want to say it. You have to follow a specific format, and you're not really given the time that you want to talk about it either. I'm sure, which when you have your own podcast, you have all that time and you can take that time. Whereas working for a radio station, you get like a little gram of,
Yes.
to discuss things.
And I will tell you, I grew up wanting to be in radio, and it's still very much a love of mine, which is why I still listen to the show I used to be on and enjoy. Dave Smiley is probably the greatest of our generation when it comes to just being a true radio genius. He knows how to communicate and how to move people, and that really prepared me for what I'm doing in podcasting. And from the standpoint of what you're talking about with radio, it's very challenging when someone says, the data shows that when you open the microphone, you have 7 seconds for that listener to decide if they're going to keep listening to you. Wow. 7 seconds. And so that becomes an art and a skill that not everyone has.
No.
And some of that has really helped me in the podcast world of being able to make sure that I'm still paying attention to, is the conversation interesting? Are we keeping in mind that we have people listening to us and not just entertaining ourselves?
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
That is probably one of the hardest parts, is that we can sit together and love our friends and think we're having the best conversation. But if you're honest, is it a conversation that somebody else would love?
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
That's something to always keep in the back of your head, especially when having podcasting broadcasts going sent out and whatnot.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I still do. I do a little bit of radio. I voice track a night show for Shine 99, which is a.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just started that in February, so I kind of got back into radio a little bit. It takes me a few hours to do a whole show for a week, so it's not the interaction I'm used to.
I gotcha.
Sure.
But it's nice to be still back a little bit in the industry that got everything going for me.
Mm-hmm. I also want to know, KJ, what you said that you always wanted to get into like radio broadcasting. What was it about, like, if you don't mind me asking, what was it that really kind of wanted you to get into doing such a thing? Like, what made you want to? What was the reasoning for your passion for something like that? Like, what sparked that for you?
Yeah, looking back in the journey that I've been on, what started off was really my passion for music. And that was, I was in my room for hours at a time, recording my favorite songs, like getting ready to record when it came on the radio.
We've all been there.
Been there.
Yes. The kids these days, and they get to just download their favorite song in a second. We had to wait hours and have our finger on record.
That's right. And they had that pain of the DJ still speaking while the song was playing. No, wait, come on.
Don't ruin it.
Yes. So that was sort of what started it, was my passion for music and how music connected us to other people and connected us emotionally. And then, I grew up in a small, really, really small farm town in Wisconsin. And the only way for me to be connected further in music was the radio station. Mm-hmm. And so that was the next step, was to get into radio. And then as I learned, going from being passionate about the music part of radio and programming, and then being on the air and realizing how much more of a connection you could have, I've kind of learned that what drives me is being a compassionate communicator. Yeah. And it started with music and then kind of rolled into being able to really invite people into a community where we share the same likes and we are very human and open and flawed, but celebrating that. And I've been very fortunate that through my career, I've had a lot of people that, that have connected. And Brian, we've known each other for years,
Mm-hmm.
and and we see each other at cons, and it's like no time has passed. And I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
It just really, that is what I have learned drives me, is really that community,
Same.
being able to connect.
Same. I feel the exact same way. That's why I with the current situation going on right now, it sucks because we haven't seen each other probably since it's been since last year, and it sucks because the community doesn't get to come together right now like it usually does in person, and so we're having to find ways in which to bring our communities together. I know, like, you guys have been doing Zoom room meetings. I know I've been a part of a couple of those. And things like that, trying to bring your community together, which is great. Albeit this is a really bad thing going on right now in the world, it has caused a lot of us for our creative juices to flow even more because we're at home. What else can we really do right now, right?
Yes.
So I mean, so for those of us like ourselves that are podcasters, is actually a really great opportunity for us to try to find ways to get creative or draw the communities together. That's why we love having guests on our show, because we want people like you to be able to come on here and basically use this as a platform to promote yourself and your community. And I know that you guys used to, before everything started going on here, you guys would have like kind of nerdy nights out, right? You would do the whole, you would meet up for movies and things of that nature. I'm sure you guys are missing that. Like,
oh my gosh, so much.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah. I mean, and that was sort of where the kind of nerdy night in developed, was because we were missing our kind of nerdy night out events. We would go to a movie at least once a month. We were meeting movies.
Cool.
We just started this gaming event. We were about 3 weeks into doing Wednesday nights at the Vogue, which is this iconic theater in Indianapolis, and we're playing, Smash Brothers on this gigantic screen. And
that's cool.
oh my gosh, it was amazing. And then it all stopped. And it was like, oh, what do we do? So the kind of nerdy night in is it's just a Zoom room party that we invite anybody into, and we've made some really great connections. And it's we have if you go on Facebook and search Kind of Nerdy Network, we have a private group, and it's grown, but it's neat to see. Like, I'll go into it and I see people having conversations who a couple months ago didn't know each other, and they're not talking to me, they're talking to each other.
So KJ, in regards to the network, is that worldwide? Is that for everybody, for people from California like me, or is that an indie only type thing?
It is worldwide. We have people from Canada, from England.
Nice.
That's awesome.
We've got a girl that joins us. Actually, last night she couldn't get her child to go to bed, so she actually put a background behind her, or was hiding in her bathroom so that she could.
That's okay. That's creative. That's pretty great.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
That's pretty awesome. I like that.
Yeah, and she's from Denver, so it's welcome to it's open to everyone. We've kept it a private group just because we want everyone to be comfortable, and whatever makes you nerdy, it can be the weirdest thing, you can post it and we will cheer you on. Like, that's awesome that you love that. We have artists who will post like, hey, this is my latest sketch, and everyone's so positive and kind. And I really appreciate that. I haven't had to be that like mediator who's like, you can't join this group, or you're blocked, or remember the rules. It's it is organically grown into a very positive community that supports each other and has very lively conversations about the things
absolutely
we don't agree on, right?
I've seen it. I've been a part of those.
But never in a way that gets
toxic. It doesn't get toxic. There's no toxicity there, and that's another great thing too. The world needs more of that, especially during these times right now. We need that more togetherness, because I think it's so easy right now to get lost in the chaos. You know what I mean? Like, with everything going on right now, and that's what we're trying to do. Is bring everybody together. I know you're doing a fantastic job with your community. bringing people together and kind of taking that focus away. Because the fact is that, social media tends to have a pretty dark side to it. And a lot of places like your community and several communities I'm a part of can easily get lost in that.
Yep.
I love seeing the positivity that shines in you guys, in your group. You know what I mean? It's great. And that's definitely something we need more of. And which leads me to my next point. Let's talk about your involvement with Make-A-Wish. I love this, by the way. You've done some pretty amazing things with Make-A-Wish. I kind of want to know how did you get involved in the Make-A-Wish Foundation? What was that like for you? Let's go ahead and tell us about that, KJ. What was it like getting involved in Make-A-Wish, and how'd that go for you?
Yeah, so it all stemmed back to being a little baby radio programmer, moving to Indianapolis for my first job, which paid $15,000, and I was very excited about it.
Yes, I made it.
Yes. I have insurance.
That's awesome. Yes, that's how you look at it. Yeah.
Yes. And so when I got to ZPL, and I was working in a programming and promotions capacity, they said, we just did this thing in December called the Requestathon, and it seemed to really connect with our listeners. And so the very first event was the only one that I was not a part of in 1998. So by December of 99, it was my mission to help grow it into a true annual event that could be a staple for the radio station.
Yeah.
And so I worked on it for 4 years behind the scenes, really growing it from a programming standpoint. And then when Julie and Steve, the original DJs who had started it, moved on, and we brought in this crazy guy named Dave Smiley, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and be on your morning show because I love the Requestathon, and I'm not sure you can handle it. I mean, that was really my driving force. So,
I got to take care of this. I got to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like this is my baby, and you can't ruin it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, no doubt.
And it turns out, he is just a perfect combination of compassion and crazy. That he, really, even without me, the last 4 years, it has gone on. And when I was I was actually approached by Make-A-Wish last year when I was beginning my podcast and transitioning to Pet Pals TV and my media company, and it wasn't really sure how that was all going to work. Make-A-Wish reached out and said, hey, we happen to have an opening. We need a person to run the Requestathon from the Make-A-Wish side. And it was it was almost, it was one of those phone calls where, I had to take a second and be like, is this real? Like, if this is
I'm getting a call from Make-A-Wish,
Right.
That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
I never would have thought like I should apply for a job at Make-A-Wish and join the nonprofit world. It really was, it was a dream come true to be able to stay with this event that has become a staple in the community that's going
Absolutely.
on. And really continue to nourish it and help it grow. And so, I mean, I look at my life from a year ago and I didn't, in February when I didn't have a job, and I was like, well, I guess I'll podcast because I don't have anything else to do. I'll keep my podcast going and see where this goes, to now I have this podcast that's growing in ways that I could have never dreamed, with this community on Facebook that's incredible. That I get to grant wishes every day and talk nerdy and do TV stories about cats. Like it is seriously like a dream come true. I could have never imagined being here.
It's crazy how things work out sometimes,
Yes.
You plant the seeds, years before, and then they end up, sprouting awesome opportunities for you. And that's amazing. So I know you mentioned cats, and you mentioned PayPal TV. Is there something going on with
Pals.
that?
Yeah.
Pet Pals.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yes. So Victor, Pet Pals TV is it's an independent TV show that started and has been going strong for 10 years. here in Indianapolis, and now in 28 markets across the country.
Yeah.
And we are very much on the West Coast. We're on several stations in LA. We're in San Jose. So I always tell people, go to petpalstv.com and check your national listings. But yeah, it's a half-hour program that promotes the positive aspects of being a pet owner. And there are two things in my life that have really driven my passion, which is making a difference for kids and making a difference for pets. And so now I get to do both. So
I do it all. That's amazing. Yeah, I love it.
Yes. So Pet Pals TV is tons of fun. Like I said, it's always very positive. Today, my story was on what to do if you find kittens, because spring is such a crazy kitten season. And,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I got to, make a story, and I'm posting all these cute kitten pictures. I'm like, this is the most fun ever. And then and then on Monday I go back to Make-A-Wish and get to grant some kid's wish. So
that's fantastic.
That's great.
I remember you, it was like, I think it was Gen Con a couple of years ago when you granted that wish.
It was last year.
Or last year, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It feels like it's been so long since we haven't done a convention. I'm sorry. It's like,
I know.
It feels longer than it should be. It's insane. But anyway, yeah, last year, when you granted that wish, tell us about what that was like for you. For him coming to Gen Con, he said it was his dream was to come to Gen Con, and you wanted to make that wish. Tell us about that, granting that wish for him to come to Gen Con. That was such a cool thing.
Yeah, it was a crazy ride, Brian, and you were one of the people I reached out to right away. It was my third day at Make-A-Wish officially on the team.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So they say, we're really glad you're here. We have this Gen Con wish. No idea what to do.
Oh, boy.
I was like, you have a Gen Con wish?
They hired you just for this mission.
Right. I'm like, this is fantastic and also terrifying, because Gen Con is a month away.
No kidding.
Like, everything cool has been sold out for a year, and you're putting a lot of pressure on me to figure out what to do.
So welcome to Make-A-Wish.
Yes.
We have this giant thing we want you to take care of, like, right away.
Yeah, right? It's next month, by the way. You figure.
Yeah, right, or something like that. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so I ended up on a call. So Make-A-Wish America. So we have 60 chapters. And Make-A-Wish America is headquartered in Phoenix, where it was founded, and their job is to sort of support all the chapters. So they have a specific division that is for entertainment wishes. So they work with the celebrity wishes and such.
That's cool.
They also, convention wishes fall under celebrity wishes.
Really? Okay. That makes sense. It does. Yeah.
So I'm on a phone call with the head of celebrity wishes for Make-A-Wish America on like day 4, right? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God. And he says, so tell me what celebrities are going to be there. And I was like, oh my gosh, you don't know anything about Gen Con at all. Like, that is, obviously we have some people come in, but Gen Con is not a Comic Con where there's a formula of you walk through the vendors and you go to panels and you stand in line for your autograph at this time and get this photo.
Yep.
It's a gaming convention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I kind of had to talk him through that. Like, no. We gotta get him into True Dungeons. We've got to, and all that stuff is sold out. So
how are we gonna do this?
Yeah, that's pretty great.
So it was very fun. And thankfully I got on a call with Gen Con, and they were very understanding and very excited and welcoming that we would have a child who could do anything in the world, and what he wants to do is play Dungeons and Dragons at Gen Con.
I love it.
Crazy.
I love it. That's pretty awesome.
I just really have to give all the credit to them, and True Dungeons was fantastic, and made sure that Drake's experience not only was the True Dungeons experience, but above and beyond, they had their own video crew that followed him. And at the end of his True Dungeon experience, I don't want to cry, but they presented him his own coin, which they had made for him. And everyone knelt down and they knighted him.
Oh,
man,
that's amazing.
That's amazing.
It would be every single gamer's dream come true to experience Gen Con the way that Drake got to experience it.
That's amazing. And that speaks volumes to the community, you know,
Yes.
always trying to bring people up. And we see an emotional experience for this young man.
Yes.
And was able to get the above and beyond, you know, the ultimate, I guess you can even say, I got my own personal coin. I got knighted. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's of course, and that's all coming from the people. I'm pretty sure no one walked up to them and said, hey, I need a coin, or I need this, or I need that, right? That's all from the people, the community.
Yes. I mean, it was so insane that we had to set up a drop off for the vendors who wanted to give him stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Because it was so much stuff. And then he and his family drove from Missouri. So you only have so much room in your car.
Yeah.
I mean, think about when you go to a convention, what you come back with. And he's got every vendor there wanting to give him stuff that we ended up like putting pallets together to ship to his home.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is insane.
Yes.
That's insane. And you know what though? I know you're like, this is day 3 and I had to do this and I did this. But what a better way though, KJ, for you to really get thrust into the world of Make-A-Wish. I mean, that's probably like the Disneyland type like experience, getting thrust into something like that. As you're basically, here's your introduction to Make-A-Wish and being on the inside and really seeing how those moving pieces work with the foundation and stuff like that. Because, you know, the rest of us, we see people like John Cena, who's done he's done more Make-A-Wishes than anybody has.
It's amazing.
You know, and people like that. We see that side. We see the end of it, but you got to see the entire scope of it in a way in which not many people get to. And I remember running into you at Gen Con and that year, and we talked all about that, and that's just that stuff touches my heart, man. I love when people do things like that, and I've always been a big fan of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, you know, always supporting what they do, and that's why I thought it was really unique. Even like you said, he wanted to go to Gen Con. I mean, how many kids out there are like, you know, I want to go to Gen Con. That's something that's probably not unheard of. I can't imagine, you know, I don't know if you would know this or not. Has anybody ever wanted to do that as a Make-A-Wish?
It was
to go to a convention at all like that. I mean, that's interesting.
We've had several convention wishes. Actually, the wish that I had worked on the year before I officially joined Make-A-Wish, they have a program called Women Inspiring Strength and Hope, the WISH program.
That's awesome.
And I joined that program and said, I need a nerdy kid. Like I pair me up with a kid that speaks my language. And it was right. Like,
no, you're not wrong.
I hear you 100%.
Yeah.
And so he was a young man who I'm still very close with, and it's so exciting to see that after his wish, how he flourished. He had a wish to go to Star Wars Celebration, and
that's cool.
He wanted to meet Mark Hamill, and that was a thing that just got like so out of control. And the generosity of the community is that one of my friends here locally tweeted out the day that I said, I'm going to be working on granting this wish more information soon. He sent it out and tagged Mark Hamill in it, and Mark Hamill sent it out. And so I woke up at it was like one of those nights I forgot to shut off my notifications. And I'm like, why is my email going crazy? It's like, bloop, bloop, bloop. Yeah. We were getting donations all over the world, and his wish was granted before I even had a chance to talk about it, because the Star Wars community found out this kid wanted to go to Star Wars Celebration, and Mark Hamill said, let's make it happen.
That's
and
amazing.
I got to call him and be like, well, your wish is granted. That was easy.
Like, wait a
That's
minute, didn't we just
awesome.
talk to you about this yesterday?
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
And what was so amazing, his name is Eli. What was so amazing about Eli and finding out that it was happening, and Mark Hamill knew he'd be coming to Star Wars Celebration, and that he was excited to meet him, was that Eli said, well, what do we do now? Because he knew we had a party planned and like all these things we were going to be doing to grant his wish.
Yeah.
He said, can I help you grant another wish? And so
Oh, wow.
out of Eli's wish, he teamed up with me, and we ended up granting a wish for a girl named Cassidy who wanted to go to the Harry Potter studios. And so 2 nerdy wishes came out of this.
That is awesome.
Amazing moment.
That is amazing.
That's crazy. That's cool. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's,
Love it.
you know, that is one thing I really miss about going to conventions is the community. Like, I miss being surrounded by my fellow nerds, and you know, I can honestly say I've been to a lot of. I think I did like 14 conventions in 1 year back in 2018. And as
Dude, that was
tiresome,
like a year and a half, 2 years
I know,
ago.
man.
Yeah.
Like you're reminiscing, you know.
Yeah,
back in the day.
yeah, right. And as exhausting as that was, I did Wizard World in Chicago, and I did I think it was Horror Hound that same weekend. Oh man, I'll never do that again. And I'm not gonna do two. I can't do 2 conventions in 1 weekend. I'll never do that again.
They're both great conventions.
They're both
you don't
great
want to do them in the same week.
At the same time.
but you know, as tiresome as that was to do almost like a convention every other weekend, it was still like being surrounded by all that love, that positivity. You know, I can honestly say that I've never really had a bad interaction with the community attending a convention. I've just never had that. It's kind of like, I hate to say this, but it's like my safe space. You know what I mean? Like, it's where I love to go, and that's why all this stuff going on just sucks, because we don't get to interact with each other like we want to. We don't get to play these games together in person, because let's face it, it's not the same doing this on Zoom. You know what I mean? It's not that.
I know.
You don't get that same camaraderie.
Yeah.
But man, I hope soon. I hope soon we can go back to doing these, man. I miss it. I know you guys are itching to do your nights out, you know, and actually interacting with your community. And that's one other thing too, you know, working as a radio personality, you have a different community, I'm imagining, as you do being in this community. And I know and I'm sure you got to interact. Is the interaction more than it was doing what you do now, or versus when you were doing like music and radio with the fans?
You know what I found, I wouldn't say it's not more, but I would say that the interaction I get to have is more meaningful. So
that's
what I discovered.
Like,
it's weird, because what I discovered in getting out of radio, obviously those 14 years with the Smiley Show, I developed a lot of relationships.
Absolutely.
But those relationships were 15 to 20 minutes at a time, here and there, right? Like, you know, I mean, Scott Dixon, the IndyCar driver, he and his wife Emma, we met at a party at Have a Nice Day Cafe, and
that's pretty awesome.
But then we would see each other for about 15 minutes every May.
Yeah.
When he came into the studio to promote the race. And, you know, and now, like last year, one of the first things I did with Pet Pals TV was actually covering Mutt Strut, which is the big dog walk at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Scott and Emma were the grand marshals of it. And it was like so weird, because we got to actually talk, you know, and like, be like, maybe sometime we could, you know, get coffee, like, you know, and so
it's the business relationship versus the, hey, how are you doing?
It's more personable,
right?
Experience,
and so in like, even in the kind of nerdy night out, and seeing the same people that will come to those events, and you get used to seeing them, as opposed to you know, a caller on a radio show who you get used to their voice and they become part of the show, and you kind of know them that way, but you don't really know them. So I would say, between podcasting, on the Kind of Nerdy Girls and growing that community, and Pet Pals TV and Make-A-Wish, that the relationships that I had before are stronger.
Yeah.
And we're able to have more meaningful conversations. And some of the people who just listened to me that never called in now are people that I have actual conversations with.
Yeah, of course.
Prior to COVID, like met for coffee, and we're like, wow, I've known you for 15 years, but I've never actually seen you.
Yeah. Well, that's how it was too with like you and I had been listening to you probably since you started there, and and then getting to have interactions with you and hang out with you and stuff has been great, to be able to do that on the flip side of that. By the way, I want to mention something. You mentioned Scott Dixon in the 500. Has it not been really weird being in Indianapolis and nothing involving the 500 has been going on right now? Because I know for my wife and I, we don't live in Indianapolis anymore. We live across the river from Louisville. And, they have this thing called the Kentucky Derby. You might have heard of it.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy because we moved down here. And we were like, oh, we can't wait for Derby season and everybody coming out. And we moved down here like, really? Like, really, all this has to happen right now? We moved down here. And I'm a big bourbon guy. I love bourbon. So I'm like right across the river from like bourbon capital of the world, basically.
Nice.
And now I can't even do that because of this stuff.
I go nowhere.
Yeah, so like, but has it not been really weird that there's been no like celebration of the 500? I mean, I just want has that been odd for you?
Yeah, so, like, it has been.
That's got to be weird. Like, it
has been heartbreaking. And Victor, I don't know how much you know about the Indy 500, but it for people who live in Indianapolis, there are so many traditions beyond race day. From the beginning of the month when we have the mini marathon, which is huge, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that are cheering on everyone. I mean, it's just like it's on the level of a Boston Marathon.
Yeah, it really is.
And our Indy 500 festival parade, 300,000 people attend that. It's the third biggest parade next to Macy's in the Rose Bowl. 1.5 million people watch it around the world.
Yeah, it's huge, man.
So to not
crazy because go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. It really is. Indianapolis is such a big, small town, and that is.
That's a great way to put it.
It's so like the entire big, small town is together all of May doing all of these traditions that are 100 years old.
It sounds like it's a month-long thing for you guys, right?
Like I know for me, I'm from Indianapolis. I grew up there, born and raised there. I had never been to the Indy 500, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan. I'm not a racing fan.
Yeah.
I'm more of a football like you. I love football, right?
Yep.
But I remember I had a friend of mine, and that's his thing. He would go with his family like every year, and he told me he's like, man, we're not going to be able to go. It's like, you know what? I'm going to buy his 500 tickets. I've never been. It's an experience, and it's a heck of a time. Like I went to the first one probably about 8 years ago, and then I went to the Centennial one, the 100th running of the Indy 500. That was amazing. Oh man, they did a ton of stuff for that. I mean, if you live in Indy and you listen to this show, please do yourself a favor when they have the race or when things are back to a somewhat normal state, go to the 500. Do yourself a favor. If you don't like racing, you're gonna love the experience. I mean, it's just something about those cars zooming by you at like 100 some miles an hour. And
it's just
so great.
The energy of being in an atmosphere where you have 400,000 plus people. I mean, you can't even explain to someone how big it is. And I remember when I moved here, I knew nothing about racing. I knew nothing about the track, and I was in turn 3 in the parties. one of my friends had tickets in turn 3, and I didn't understand that being.
That's where I sat too in turn 3.
But being on the infield in turn 3 to get to the stands in turn 3, you can't walk that. You can't get there.
No.
and to try to understand, like, what do you mean we're both in turn 3? I'll just walk over to you. And they're like, no, you
will not.
We can't do that.
No, you will not just walk over.
The race will be over by the time you get here.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
It's just so amazing to be in that atmosphere and feel that
totally
energy and the pomp and circumstance of such
really
a big
is.
tradition.
It's something that I have heard too. I'm not the biggest of NASCAR fans either, but I've heard that people that have experienced it, it's just something that's completely surreal for them. You don't realize how fast these cars are actually going until you actually see it yourself.
It's more so the scope of like what KJ is saying, the people that attend.
Because 500,000 people.
I've been to just about every Gen Con that they've had since I think 2003, and I've seen that convention just grow. And Gen Con probably amasses about 30 to 40,000 people. And then when you've gone to that every year, then you go to the 500. It's just like, whoa, we're all like, think a lot of people, and then you go to something like that, then you really know that's a lot of people. So, but I mean, I've talked to people in Louisville. It's weird. They do a thing called Thunder Over Louisville here. They have a big fireworks thing they do before they call it Derby season, which is like the 2 weeks leading up to the Derby. And people have been saying it just feels so hollow. It's so weird to not have any of that pomp and circumstance, that celebration. I do believe the 500 is going to happen. I think in September they're planning for that, or August. August. That's going to be weird. I'm sure
it is.
Yeah,
I think that the cool thing about the Speedway being as big as it is that. Social distancing is not a problem. I mean,
that's very true.
Right? Like you can't pack 400,000 people in.
Absolutely not.
But you could have 75,000 people in there, and it'll feel empty, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that they're gonna find a way. I feel like
they will.
They're pretty confident that that's going to happen. And IndyCar returns. I'm not sure when we're running this, but IndyCar returns June 6th. The Texas Motor Speedway is the first race. So
that's interesting.
So they've got a little bit of time to lead up to the 500. It will certainly be different, but I think it's really important for the community that it happens in
absolutely. It has to, because it would just. And once again, I correlate the month of May to two things. One, my birthday, and two, same with Victor,
Wait, you both have birthdays?
We're both May birthdays, and two, of course, being from Indianapolis, the 500, and that's something that if you're from Indy, you've grown up on that. My grandparents watched it. My mom. I mean, it's just it's a big tradition, and. Indianapolis is the racing capital of the world for a reason. You have people coming in from literally all over the world to come watch this event. It's almost on that scale of a F1 race, and F1 is huge, compared to IndyCar. And I was talking to my wife last night. I'm like, man, I can't imagine us being in Indy right now, and there's this no 500 festival, no mini marathon. It's got to be so incredibly weird. And it's going to be even more weird when Gen Con weekend is supposed to happen and there's nothing going on that weekend.
That's what's going on.
That's another thing that's going to be like, man, this is going to be insanely odd.
I know.
Just weird times.
Those 4 days. Actually, it's not even about 4 days. They used to call it the best 4 days in gaming, and they changed it to something else. I forget what they changed it to, but it's not even 4 days. It's like a whole week. Like that convention is a week. It's not 4 days. It's the whole week. And
you kind of knew it was coming, but when the announcement came, it was it
was still heartbreaking. Like, no.
Well, and Brian Drake, our Wish Kid, was going to come back. I had made a pact with him. That because he was teaching me D&D throughout the 4 days that we were together.
That's actually pretty cool. Yeah.
And so I had made a pact with him that I would be ready to play D&D by the time Gen Con came back around, and he and his family they were going to drive back from Missouri, and I had warned him. I'm like, man, you've had like the ultimate Gen Con experience here.
Dude,
as cool as it's going to be next year, like it might not live up to what you
like,
had.
That expectation.
How do we even top that? Like we you know,
Right?
like how do we top that? It's you know, yeah. I mean, I'm sure, you know, we all miss going to conventions and doing those things, you know. But the beautiful part is we have the technology, you know, to be able to still, you know, I guess in a way hang out with people. I know, like a buddy of mine, one of my really, really close friends lives like 20 minutes away from me in the next city over. And, you know, when we were doing this whole, like, don't hang out with people, whatever, like just stay at your home.
Yep.
It's kind of funny. We were watching movies together via Zoom. I would just sit in my recliner. You know, it would be something that would be like on Netflix or something. We just want, you know, hang out. It's weird, but it's like, it's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's not like we can't do it. We might as well. If we're going to hang out, let's find a way to do it. And there has been some beautiful creations coming out of this chaos that I've had the pleasure of seeing and things like that. I'm sure you've seen that as well. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm very proud, KJ, to call you a friend and someone that has worked in this community and doing what you love to do. I'm for real. I can't say it enough. I'm very proud of you. Like, seriously,
Okay,
that's amazing.
You are doing some amazing work over there. And, you know, I love hearing stories like yours of where you came from this point in your life to where you're at now, doing what you love to do, you know, even more, I would say, and building upon that. I have to ask you something. Do you have any like projects coming up or things like that you're working on that you want to kind of share with us, or something that we can look forward to?
Sure. Well, I mean, the kind of nerdy girls is always a project. And you will hear that when you listen to us. One of the things that came out of, you know, moving from radio and having to do, you know, everything ourselves was like, oh my gosh, we can't, like, we had a music library and we had funny theme music and a voice guy. And so I started doing our own sound effects. And,
yeah, you don't have those licenses to music like you used to.
Oh my gosh. And you want to talk about, like, you know, some things to know if you're going to start a podcast.
Yeah, let's get that. Yeah.
Do not use copyrighted music.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do that.
Find a friend who's like halfway good with a guitar or something, but do not just go pull, you know, Welcome to the Jungle out and try to use it.
Yeah, I could just imagine.
Don't go using licensed music. Don't go. You know, I know for our intro music, we use a guy named Techno Axe on YouTube, and his entire channel is like, just take my stuff, use it. Like, use my stuff. You don't have to ask me for permission. And I love all of his edits and stuff like that, which, by the way, you know, when it comes to doing your own podcast, I think that's the beautiful part about doing a podcast too. Another aspect, if you will, is unlike working at a radio station where you kind of have, like, you have all these big artists, you get to use their music, their content. It's already taken care of. On a podcast, it's way more personal, and you can also promote the people that you know locally that you can put their music up, right? Yes. Because everybody knows, you know, who, you know, all these popular artists are, like Lady Gaga, things like that. But they might not know who this person is, and you use their music for your podcast, and that helps them. So that's another beautiful aspect of, is being able to incorporate music and things like that from people who aren't as well known. Because, you know, you might have someone say, hey, KJ, you know, I heard that music you used for your intro the other day. Who is that? That's great. I loved it. Tell me about them. And then you get into that conversation to help promote them. You know, as far as other aspects of podcasting go, I mean, you don't need fancy equipment, like we said before. You don't need, you know, you don't need to go out and spend thousands of dollars to do this stuff. You know, I remember I used to do it on my phone. We used to use Skype. Remember, Victor, we used to use Skype, dude. We used Skype. You know, we had to go and use other programs that were not even heard of at the time, you know, before. You know,
it would take forever to get anything done.
I mean, I keep telling Victor, I'm like, man, I wish we had Zoom like 10 years ago. That would have been great. Like to be able to do these shows and stuff like that. having up to like 300 people at a time in your, and let your fans be a part of your show.
Yeah.
And even being able to put them on and talk with you. I know you do that on your Zoom rooms. You'll have people come on. You had me come on, talk about Mandalorian the other day, which was kind of a fun conversation we talked about for a little bit. And, but you don't need fancy equipment. Don't get that in your head. This isn't, you're not at a radio station where you have all this stuff. The other thing too is, and I will say this, the best part about podcasting is you can podcast about anything. I mean it. And I'm telling you right now, there are people who go out and talk about the shoes they bought yesterday, and they do a podcast about it. It's weird. It's odd, but people love that stuff. It's a very niche thing, which is great about podcasting. You're not tied to a format, and don't feel like you have to have a strict format when it comes to doing that. Talk about your passions. Talk about what you love doing. I look at it as I'm just hanging out with my friends, man. I don't see this as anything too deep or, the hard part is the editing and all that stuff that comes later. I know that for myself, I use Audacity. Audacity is a free program you can download. It doesn't cost anything at all. And I even did a tutorial on our Dragon Blogger YouTube channel for all of you out there. So if you want to know how to edit, I teach you. It's free, and that's the other great thing about the internet. We have YouTube. It's basically the college of everything you've ever wanted to do, and you could do it for free. Learn. Right. You don't need, I know back in the day you had to have a degree in radio broadcasting to get to where you wanted to go. You know that, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
But now you don't have to have that. It's great. And you don't, and you can teach yourself things and do those podcasts about that stuff. I mean, you and I have gone to enough conventions, KJ, to know people podcast about Supernatural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They podcast about the Marvel universe, Star Wars, all that kind of stuff. And for me as a podcaster, it does lead to other doors too. Because I know for me, I started doing what I do. It started out doing podcasting 8 years ago. And that led to me working in the video game industry, being able to do video game reviews and things like that. And then which led to like Victor and I having video game developers on our podcast to talk about the games they love and things like that. And now I'm doing these convention reviews, even though I can't do them right now.
Even though you can't go just yet.
I can't go and do them like I want to. But here's the cool part. I might get to be reviewing my first online convention. That's going to be interesting. Reviewing a virtual con.
Right.
That's going to be a weird experience, but it's one I'm looking forward to. So don't limit yourself to just podcasting, because that's going to open all kinds of doors. KJ, I'm sure you can attest to that. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some doors open for you, even doing the Kind of Nerdy Girls podcast, right?
Absolutely. And I think, like a lot of what you said is what I tell people when about podcasting. It's whatever you're passionate about and you can talk about and never get sick of, that is your podcast. And I don't care if it's making water bottles. There's somebody else that is equally passionate about that wants someone else to talk to, right? Like that's the beauty of it all, is that, again, if you are speaking about your true passion, there are people who want to hear that and be a part of it. So when you sit there and go, I don't know what I would podcast about, well, just kind of think about really what you care about, and it'll grow from there. Because I think that, the beauty of podcasting is that you can tell immediately that when it's authentic. And when it's, I don't love produced shows. I like flawed shows. I like when they start off and they're like, oh, your mic sounds like crap. And you're like, like,
man.
Even when we just started, I'm over here adjusting my curtains, making sure I got light,
That's the beautiful part about it, because like you do, like you said, you were used to radio and having everything be like a certain way, and pretty much running like clockwork. I'm sure you guys had flaws too. Everybody does. We're not perfect, but like the beautiful part about doing a podcast is it's uncut, like for the most part. I don't really, and that's the beautiful part, is we're human. You get to see our humanity come out. I'm not saying the audio quality is always going to be 100% better than what it was before, or whatever, but that's just the nature of the beast, if you will.
Yeah.
We don't have this. I don't have a program director telling me how to do this or what to do or what to say, or have it or in my ear or somebody in my headset, or a stack of papers tell me what I have to say next, or or even like advertisements, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a big thing in the radio industry is, having to do, I know they do like Pro painters and all that stuff they used to.
Yes.
All that stuff, all those advertisements, which to me personally, listening to the radio and hearing a DJ transition from talking about music to then doing an ad, I thought was a little like weird, but I get
it is weird. And that's I said no to so many things, but it's funny that one of the greatest endorsements that I love, that I was like, let's do this, that everybody else was kind of like, I don't think I can talk about that every day, was zero res carpet cleaning.
Oh my God, you talked about that all the time. Oh my God, I remember driving to I remember when I didn't work from home. I remember going to work. I worked in the morning, and I'd say, "Okay, KJ better talk about zero res." And
zero res.
My whole day is gonna be thrown off, and you would.
But like,
you guys gotta fill me in on what this is.
Okay.
Go ahead, KJ. Tell us all about it. Tell us all about it.
Zero res means no residue left behind. Zero res is a different way to clean your carpets because it's all natural. Yes. They don't leave the chemicals in your carpets. So I like.
There it is. You got it. You got the commercial right there.
I legitimately love this thing because I have 5 cats, and at the time I had a cat with asthma, and so it was a really big deal to me that we not have chemicals around. So I was I seriously, and they would clean my carpets once a quarter. I'd be like, the cleanest carpets ever. And it's
that's amazing.
People were like, I can't talk every day about carpet cleaning. And I was like, listen,
watch me. I will.
I freaking love zero res.
I got this, guys.
I would post pictures rolling around on my carpet with my cat and be like, it's so safe and it's so nice and soft. And
that is so funny.
I would, I mean, those behind the scenes conversations about, hey, this company wants you to endorse it. And I'd be like, if I don't feel like I can talk about it, I'm not talking about it. And I think that's important, in podcasting as well, as we, figure out, at this moment, I certainly tell people don't get into podcasting for the money because not figured that out yet.
Nope.
But as we do, that needs to look at something that fits into your lifestyle. You have to figure out how that is going to sound natural.
Absolutely.
And if talking about zero res carpet cleaning isn't something you can do every day and seriously love it, don't do it, because we're going to know that you are doing it for the money.
And you better believe that every time I heard you talk about it, KJ, I knew that you loved it. I mean, for real, you have a certain voice inflection when you talk about something you're passionate about. And I'm like, man, I'm telling you what, she really loves this company because I could hear it in your voice, man.
I would freaking dig it every time they showed up to my house with their van. I'm like, carpet cleaning day.
That is funny.
That's amazing.
So, if you're listening right now, Zero Res, I'd love for you to continue to consider me as an endorsement. Clean my carpets. Great. I don't even care if you pay me. Just come clean my carpets again.
There you go. God. There you go. We'll do some trade-offs.
That is great.
KJ said she'll do some trade-offs, some free carpet cleaning.
Let's just clean the carpet. That's all I want.
That's it. Yeah. That's all I want.
That's it. The other thing, too, I want to talk about is hosting your podcast. I know a lot of people don't quite, okay, so what if I have all the tools I need? What if I got Zoom, I've got my microphone, I've got my audio mixer and my post-editing software. Where do I put my podcast? How do I get it out there? How do people listen to it? So the thing about that is, once again, beautiful part about internet is there's a ton of places you can go and do a podcast. I would like to say this. I would say that for a beginner, my recommendation, because it basically gives you everything you need and it's free, minus the post editing, because you still want, in my opinion, you want Audacity, unless you have a better program than that. Of course, by all means, use it. Is Blog Talk Radio. I don't know if you're familiar with Blog Talk Radio, KJ.
I'm not.
It
Tell
is
me about it.
It is a website that allows you to host your own podcast, and they host it on the website for you. If you do the free standard basic whatever it is membership they have, you can't do a podcast during like prime time slots, so like after 6 o'clock and before I think like 11. So you have to pay to have your podcast slotted in those times. But what's great is it gives you in one page the ability to have your own phone number if you want people to call in. So people can call into your show.
Nice.
You're allowed to, I think, on the free do a podcast up to, I think, 45 minutes, which 45 minutes to an hour tends to be the standard show.
Yeah.
Some people do 2 hours. I don't know how you can do a 2-hour show. I don't think I could do a 2-hour show. That's a long time. Because they always say, people's attention spans online are like that. So
there hasn't been like solid research yet, but I feel pretty strongly we do all different. Like I've got an interview with Tom Payne from Prodigal Son that's 7 minutes long.
Yeah, of course.
And then I've got an episode that's an hour and 15 and then one that's 20 minutes, because I know when I look, I'm looking at like, I won't be in the car that long. Not that I'm never in the car now, I don't go anywhere, but like I do take into consideration how long a podcast is. So I think that it's important that you offer people variety.
It is. And but it's a great website. It's free, and they'll host it right there on the website. And it's honestly, it's as easy as pushing a button. And if you don't want to do it from your microphone, you can actually, there's a program you can download on your phone, and it allows you to do a whole entire podcast from your phone, which is really, really crazy. They have that. I know I did it for a little bit.
Where was this 10 years ago?
That's what I'm saying, man. And I did a little video game show on there too for a little while. I was reviewing like old games and new games, things like that. So it's a great start. But for those of you who don't want to use Blog Talk Radio and you want to have a place to host it, you can do. We do SoundCloud, that's where we host, and of course you're going to have to pay. That's just how this works. So be prepared to spend a little bit of money. It's not a lot of money. It's not like you're going to spend hundreds of dollars, unless of course if you need that much space. But the best part is we have this thing called the cloud now, which once again, Victor, say it. Where was that 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so you get all that storage space.
Right.
And then of course you want to look into using an RSS feed, which that's going to get you into Spotify, Apple Music. I know right now we're on Apple Music, we're on Google Play, and we're on SoundCloud, and then of course YouTube. Because you can put your stuff on YouTube, even if it's just an audio-only podcast. You can put it on YouTube, use something for your backdrop, and then that's it. That's all you got to do. And then, and of course, there's various places. I know you guys use Libsyn, right?
Yes.
You're hosting.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they use that.
And it's, I think I pay $20 a month, and that gives me all of the storage space that I need for an entire month. I mean, if you are doing, and really, and this is another thing I tell people when they're starting, how many episodes should I do? You should do the amount of episodes that you can guarantee your listeners will be there.
Absolutely.
So don't promise 2 episodes a week, because there's no way with talking, editing, posting. Like, promise that if you can only start off and do one a month, do one a month, and tell people my podcast is post once a month on the third Thursday. But set the expectation to where you can meet it. Absolutely. Because if you can't meet it, you can't expect to have that trust.
And that's the thing. You don't want to, don't make promises you can't keep. Because then you'll alienate your fan base. If people are taking look at it like this, you're taking the time to give them content. They're going to also take the time out of their day to come listen to your content. Yes. So that's why on our show, it is pre-recorded. We do this on Saturday, and then we put it on Monday, and I always make sure it's up on Monday. Now I don't say Monday at 8 a.m. because I'm not going to, I don't want to set that expectation of like people getting up early and expecting our show on there. But we do always make sure that it's on YouTube and it's on SoundCloud and everywhere else same day.
Yes.
That way people have the fluidity of being able to use it. And that's one thing you also want to do with, that's what's important with the RSS feed, is maybe you don't want to listen to us on SoundCloud. And guess what? That's okay. You don't have to listen to us on SoundCloud. That's why we give you all these other beautiful options. I know right now we're working on getting into Spotify here soon. I know you guys are on Spotify, which is great.
Spotify's great.
Yeah, Spotify is amazing. Yeah,
I love being on Spotify, and it's really easy from the social media standpoint. Like, I can just share that episode from Spotify into my stories, and I'm like, brilliant.
Yep.
Yeah, so easy. Where was this 10 years ago? I'm telling you.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then you know, as far, and that's really all there is to it. I mean, you know, and just let your show go organically. Let it evolve organically. Don't try to push too much too fast. Let's put it that way. Don't don't make all these things you're going to do and say, and let it grow. Like, don't try to get to the goal in episode 1. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and I also encourage, I know a lot of people don't like the sound of their own voice. I don't like the sound of my own voice. I don't.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean.
My voice, not yours.
You know, yeah. It's okay. You can tell me how you feel. Don't hold back on this show, KJ. It's all right.
Yeah.
No.
There's no edit here, guys. There's no edit here, guys.
We're just going to edit that out right there. No, but listen to your podcast, for real. Listen to it. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. I mean, you do when you're editing it. You want to make sure it sounds good. But you know, you're going to have to get comfortable with the sound of your own voice. That's just all there is to it. I mean,
have you tried, Brian, have you tried using Descript?
No. What is that?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Descript.
Tell us about it.
Let me tell you. Descript is wonderful. And I really recommend it for anyone who's starting out, just because it's really easy to use. I think it gives you maybe 3 hours free a month. So, and then it's like $12 a month. But you upload your file and it transcribes it. So you're looking at what appears to almost like a Word document.
Oh, wow.
You hit like one little button that says remove filler words, and it takes all your uhs and ums out in like 10 seconds. Dude, like,
okay.
And
hold
on now.
I got a question here. I'm going to ask it in a minute.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes. So that alone is amazing. And it tells you how many it took out. So it'll be like, we took out 178 filler words. And you're like, God, I say a lot. But and there I am. So it does that super easy. And then in those, so since you can read the segments as you're editing, so if you know there was like a whole segment that was just really dragging and you just want to cut it out, you could highlight it like a paragraph and hit delete.
That is amazing.
The audio. So you edit your audio as you're reading it. So if you don't want to hear your own voice, you can actually edit it that way, still listen to it. So it's got the wave going across the bottom, and that's in real time with the words as you're scrolling. Brian, I'm telling you, Brian. I'm
really
someone
cool.
you know, I'm someone who can edit in Adobe Audition and all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am still choosing my like first run editing. I am running through Descript to ignore those filler words and then just read the content and be able to go, I can just delete all of this right now and know where there's a transition for where I say, you know, in other news, or let's go to Jonna. I can just like cut that whole chunk out. It's awesome. And you don't have to have a lot of editing experience. I mean, if you know how to use Word, you can edit an audio file on.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because it's obviously an audio file, right? So then, since we're doing video, if you cut out the ums, are we going to get a good 2 seconds of and hear nothing? You know?
So I
was wondering if it cuts that video feed too.
To my knowledge, what I'm using is just the audio feed. So I do. Every single episode that we put up as the Kind of Nerdy Girls automatically goes to our YouTube channel. I then offer, if we've done it on video, and I try to do like all my guest interviews on video, I offer that as you can also watch it on YouTube. So if you just want to listen to it, because I feel like when you're watching people talk, the uhs and the ums and the stuff that sounds funny when you don't have the visual aspect, it's not as
natural.
It's not as big a deal in the
Yeah.
video world, right? Like
we're
not. Yes.
And I will say this.
I let the plus Brian, you tell, like, Victor, you can tell people, like, I edited out stuff that I thought that sucked for the podcast, but if you want to see it, I made a total ass of myself at this point in the interview. And I'm not going to let you listen to it, but if you want to watch it.
If you want to watch it, there we go.
You want the raw, uncut version. Go to YouTube.
You gotta go catch it on YouTube.
And watch.
You want to see how bad I actually am at this? Go watch it on YouTube. I kind of offers like some behind the scenes stuff.
We get it. We get it. Actually, it's kind of.
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
Victor and I, when we did our gaming podcast, we did this pre-show thing, and we would record. You know, I would hit record, and a lot of times they didn't know I did it. I'd be like, we're just going to sneak this in here. And because that's sometimes that you get a lot of really good stuff before people know you're recording.
In the pre-show. Yeah.
Yes.
So I would sometimes try to incorporate, you know, of course it wouldn't be the whole thing, but like I would try to incorporate as much of that as I could. And touching on real quick about experience with editing. I will say this. I had this much experience editing before I did podcasting. And it was a fun journey to figure that out. I mean, even like when Victor and I came back and did this show, and I know, Victor, it still blows your mind. We hadn't done the show in 5 years before we did episode 21 with Paul. And I'm like, okay, I can do this, right? It's like riding a bike, whatever, right? That's what they say. I sit here, I pull up Audacity, I'm like, so, you know, so I had to.
How do I do this? Let me get YouTube back on here. How do I do this?
Yeah. So, but you don't need a ton of experience really to edit things like that. I know for me, I'm not as good at the video editing as I am the audio editing, and that's fine. I have my really good friend. His name is Johll. He's on YouTube. He does a whole bunch of audio edits. He's the one that I send the video version of the show over to. And I say, hey, can you add some backgrounds here? Can you put our names on here? So, you know, so those of you watching on YouTube, you know, that's him. He does the edits for that. He puts our intro music in and makes it all sound good. I, on the other hand, take care of all the audio. And that's the other thing too, is not just do you really not need a lot of experience. You know, when we touched on promoting other people. You know, if you know somebody who's great at video editing, I bet they would love to do it, because if they're passionate about it, they want to look at it and help you, and you can in turn, once again, promote them. Yeah. And I know I've promoted him on a couple shows for editing our video. He does a fantastic job at it. And but the other thing too is the time. Please make sure you have time to do a podcast before you go into this looking like, oh, I got this great idea for a show. You know, make sure that you have the time. We all have busy lives, maybe not as busy right now,
right?
But, and that can also be a problem, because I'm sure there's been a great influx of new podcasts starting because of what's going on right now.
Yes.
But please keep in mind that when we all get back to some sort of normalcy, please don't forget your podcast. Don't, you know, if you're gaining viewers and you're gaining traction with the show you're doing right now, just remember, you're probably going to go back to work eventually. You're going to go and do the things you normally did before in some way. So make sure that you're setting aside time, because if you don't have time to do a podcast, just don't even do it. Yeah. There's just no point in doing it. And it ties back into, of course, telling your audience we're going to do it on, you know, like we do our shows every Monday, and that's the expectation. That is what it's going to be. Have there been times where it's been Sunday and I'm like, oh crap, I totally forgot to send
this video
over.
Gotta get to work.
Oh man, I gotta send this video over because it's Saturday.
Yeah.
I have to have this show up in 2 days, okay? So it's not a lot of work. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like it's hard, because it really isn't hard, but that's because we're so passionate about what we do.
Right.
Is
No, but you got to cut that time out. You got to make sure you carve that time
Yeah.
out to get it done. You know.
Yeah, there's been
It's
times
not time consuming. It's not too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not passionate about it, you'll easily lose track of it, and it's gonna sit on the wayside. And then it's time for another recording, and you haven't even put this one up yet. And
yeah, and that's the thing.
That's happened.
Sure we've all had our moments. I'm sure KJ, you've had your moments where you're like, oh man, I gotta get this out on Libsyn. I gotta upload. We gotta do this and that. And
every single episode. Every single episode.
Every single one.
Oh, crap.
No, come on. No.
Well, I've been doing so. I wanted to make sure that when we did our show that we sort of got established again, because we have a lot of new people that were listening and finding us again because we moved from a different platform. And so I wanted to sort of establish our characters again, and this is who we are. And Katie is our gamer, and Jonna watches Hallmark Channel like it's a drug, and and sort of, and Kitsy's our paranormal investigator, and but I've started bringing interviews back into our show now, and so that's made it a little crazier. I was like, man, I said I'd do one episode a week that's us and one episode a week that's an interview, and now I'm doing 2 episodes again a week. And why did I say I would do this? Because it's so it's been a little bit crazy, like finding my rhythm again. With that.
I gotta ask you, being as someone who did radio and then went into podcasting, what are some of those challenges that you faced versus radio, doing a podcast? Like, what has been some things you've had to, I guess, overcome versus when you were working on radio and working in a radio studio? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're doing this from your home, just like I am. What are those challenges you've had to, the different challenges you face versus being on radio as opposed to podcasting?
Yeah, I mean, I miss the all of the equipment so much.
That push button stuff, huh?
Yeah, I mean, in a studio, I turned my mic on, I hit record, and everything was it's the best quality, and a mic that was specifically calibrated for my voice to be perfect, because my voice sucks, you guys. Like, it's very, you're going to figure this out, Brian, when you're editing this podcast. My voice is really hard to edit. It's like I'm yelling into the mic, and then I'm back here, and I'm like,
it's okay though. I like your raspy voice. It makes you. You know what I mean?
Thank you. You're not going to like it when you're editing.
We'll see about that.
But yeah, and going to an engineer when something was wrong and being like, you need to fix that microphone because this sounds like crap. Now I'm like, I need to fix this microphone because it sounds like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I had my co-hosts that worked at the radio station, so we were in the studio together, so I could say, like, run down and be like in their production room, be like, do you have 20 minutes to podcast? Get down in here. And so there's there's respecting each other's time,
that's a good point.
Figuring out how to commit to each other that you're going to make this work. That is a real challenge, but like I said, last February when we went off on our own, I just said, well, we'll see if we care about this enough. We'll keep doing it.
That's a very good point.
That's a great point, because that's something that we did struggle with in our early years, is trying to find the time that we can commit to each other, only because, it was not just us two, the East Coast, West Coast time difference. We had a third party member as well. So to correlate that time sometimes was a bit of a challenge,
I'll tell you this, the very first podcast I ever did, it was me. I'm in the Midwest, Eastern time. Then I had another guy who was in, get this, Manchester, United Kingdom. All right. And then, and then I had, and our third co-host, he was in Italy. So imagine trying to line up
that time frame, right?
Yeah.
I remember at one point,
man, I remember waking up at like you said you wake up at 3:45 a.m. to go to work every day. I had to wake up at like 4:30 to do a podcast. I would do a podcast at 4:30 in the morning because overseas it's like afternoon. And they'd be like, "So, how are you today?" I'm like, a zombie." Like, it's like,
yeah. Well, even the two of you trying to figure out the time difference with Victor being on the West Coast. It's
It's like I was mentioning to Brian right before I got on. I was like, dude, I'm finishing breakfast up. I'm gonna go grab my coffee. I'll go brush my hair. I'll be on in like 5 minutes. 10 minutes before 10. 10 minutes before our time to start the show. It's like, just give me a minute. I think
that's the other thing I love.
In the bathroom brushing my hair.
Yeah, he was brushing his hair when we were on the video before we got you on. It's like, whatever. Yeah. But that's the beauty of this whole podcasting stuff, right? Is unlike going to a radio station, you got to be dressed up, you go to work because you still have to dress. You got to dress up, go to work, things like that. Man, I could be in my PJs right now. Y'all not even know because all you see is my face.
I know.
Yeah, he's
PJs.
Like, yes,
PJs.
Oh, I mean,
pulling on my Santa shirt.
Find yourself a space that you're comfortable doing your show, and that's another important part. You do want to set aside a space because you're probably doing this from home. So make sure you set aside a space where you're not. I know for me, I'm married. I don't have any children. I know you don't have any children, and Victor does have children. So you got to make sure you're setting. Yeah, he's got 4 kids. Yeah. 4 kids. So I mean, make sure you're setting aside a space that's quiet. Of course, make sure that you have good lighting and things like that. Your house, your place better than anybody else. So you're gonna know where those angles are, where you need to set up, things like that. Like, look, I'm in my kitchen. It's not the best looking place, but hey, you know what? It's where I'm comfortable doing it from.
Right.
And we're doing video. You don't have to do video podcasts. You can do an audio podcast, which I think, honestly, audio is a lot easier than doing the video because you don't have to worry about cameras and Zoom and lighting and all that stuff. I know what we do is we try to have our format set up to where every other week we have a guest and it's a video show. So not all of our podcasts are video. So I kind of like how that works. So for instance, next Saturday when we record, it's just going to be audio and that's it, because we want the video to be special because we know our guests want to probably have some things they want to show our audience. And
look at all this nerdy stuff.
Yeah, right? That's what I was looking at. It looks amazing.
Yeah. But that's all the time we have today for the Dragoncast. Thank you so much, KJ, once again.
Absolutely.
For taking the time to be here with Victor and I. And speaking of, I'll tell you this, KJ, I believe in a couple weeks, our next guest is going to be Carl from PopCon.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, she knows him. Yeah, we're
Carl,
and
the guy who's been saying he was going to start a podcast for 10 years.
I know. So maybe we can talk to him about that.
He's a professional podcast guest at this point.
But we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk with Carl. Hopefully, he'll be on in a couple weeks. Can't confirm that yet, but we'll see what happens. And
I'm working with those guys on the virtual
convention.
I'm
excited for that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have some really cool stuff.
That'll probably be my first virtual con that I review. I think that would be very fitting because it's from my hometown.
Well, be kind.
Yeah. Oh, I will. Oh, I will. I try to be. Be kind but be fair. That's usually how I work. But Carl's a great guy. He does PopCon Indy. And this is, I think, the 6th or 7th year. I think it's the 6th year now.
Sixth, yeah.
6th, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And I've attended every single one. They started off as a Kickstarter, which is insane. Kickstarter convention, that's crazy. Cannot wait to have Carl on to talk about PopCon. And I'm sure they had to make some pretty rough decisions. It wasn't easy.
It's been hard. I joined their team last summer, just sort of as a volunteer in media relations, and they're such great guys. Like
they all really are. Yeah,
we should all, as fans, be cheering for them and doing whatever we can do to help them because they are literally just like us, and equally devastated and more devastated that this thing that they've created can't happen when it was supposed to. Yeah, they're not a big company who's got a staff and a schedule, and we go to this town and we make this money, and we go they're like Indianapolis just trying to put on a good
Yeah.
Yeah, they are very near and dear to my heart. Like I said, I've been to so many cons, and PopCon has, it's a little biased, but I don't care. They're up there. They're definitely in my top 3. I remember, I don't know how. I know you've lived in Indianapolis for a long time, KJ, but growing up in Indy like I did, I didn't know what a convention was until we had Gen Con in 2003.
Yeah.
And then Gen Con was the only convention for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of took off. We had the Super Bowl hosted there, and then it just really sprung from there. And now all these cons want to come to Indy.
Oh my gosh! Remember the year after the Super Bowl, we had a Wizard World. We had an awesome con.
Yeah,
we had Indiana Comic Con.
Everybody wanted to come to Indy. It was just freaking amazing. And it's been fantastic. But when you go to all these corporate run, I guess you could say, cons, and you see that, and I'm not saying making money is a bad thing, because please, making money is a good thing. But then you see some that are like, it's pretty much just about making money, which is pretty sad. And then you go to PopCon, where it's like, it's not like that at all. Like, they're a business, but they also respect what the con attendee wants to see. And they're very near and dear to my heart. I will always promote them. They're not perfect. They've had their years, let's put it that way. And I know it wasn't an easy decision for Carl. Actually, they did a live feed last night that I listened to. I always try to listen to when they go live, and they were talking about that. And it sucks. It sucks, because when you're a business and you want to, and you're about that, but also it's not just about that. And the fans at this convention are very near and dear to my heart too, because we're all from pretty much Indy. We know the scene, we know what we like, what we don't like. That's what I love about people that live in Indy, is because they know what they want, right? Yep. It's not a wishy-washy community. It's very like, okay, we like this. If we don't like this, we'll let you know. Yeah. And
I see how it is. Not loving the people from California.
Oh no!
You're so fake, Victor. I can't
You West Coast people are weird. No, I'm just like... But I'm looking forward to having Carl on the show. I did talk to him, and he said he absolutely wants to be on here. Hopefully that'll be in a couple weeks, and we'll get to share his passion of PopCon now that I got started and all that stuff. But once again, thank you so much, KJ, for being here on the Dragoncast with us. KJ.
Much fun.
We'll absolutely put some links below in the description on our YouTube for your Kind of Nerdy Girls podcast, and the Nerdy Network, your Facebook page, and all that good stuff in between. Thank you so much. And Victor, thank you, my buddy, for being here once again.
Victor.
And nice to meet you guys have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Have a great week. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.